Racket 1, 2, 3. And we wanted to ask some questions to Jorge on why did he come up with this invention? What is the purpose of this racket?
Okay, the idea of this racket is to work with the contact point of a player. One of the most important things on a tennis player is the contact point. That's the beginning of the game. So this racket is divided in 3 points that I call them field 1, field 2, and field 3. Field 1 will be a Velcro, which I use for little kids to actually feel the ball. See, the ball stays on the Velcro, so little kids can feel the ball touching their hands. The level 2 is the net. So they develop eye-hand coordination by catching the ball in the net. And the third level is the string itself, that they can start hitting a few balls. Again, this is a training tool. You only use it a few minutes for specific things. It's a great tool for 10 and under tennis because kids, most of the time, they have the tendency to swing at the ball and not looking at the ball. The idea of this, it focuses you on the contact point, which is very important for kids to play.
Great. So, Jorge, how did you come up with this idea?
It's very simple. I used to teach a lot of children, always focusing on the contact point. One day, one of my colleagues comes to me and asks me, how come the kids I was teaching, they hit so well and always over the net? They have, she noticed, this lady noticed that my students make very little mistakes into a net. And I said to her, very important, I made them focus always on the right side of the racket to hit. Then she said to me, but you hit with the center of the racket. I said, no, you really hit from the center down of the racket. That's how the physics of the racket help you to push the ball over the net. If you use any other part of the racket trying to, develop topspin, the ball still will go into the net. So one day, this nice lady asked me to go and see her academy, and I went. And one thing that I noticed that day is that all the kids were hitting the ball with different part of the rackets. And every part of the racket will give you a different result.
Excellent. Okay, so could I learn with this racket?
Yes.
Or is it only for children?
No, anybody can learn with this racket.
Excellent.
The easy step of just catching the ball with a net for an adult will make him focus on concentrating on the catching the ball and touching the ball and feeling. Tennis is a game of feel. If you feel the ball, you'll be able to push it or hit it over the net better and better and better every time. But first, tennis 101 is to touch and be able to feel the ball in your hand. There's nothing closer than your hand than the Velcro for a kid or the net for a kid and an adult.
Excellent. Okay, so I guess that's how you came up with the name, 1, 2, and 3.
Correct, for the 3 fields, field 1, field 2, and field 3.
Excellent. So Jorge, explain to me why we don't use the center of the racket. I thought that when you play tennis, you want to hit the ball in the center. Why is it divided this way?
Okay, one of the biggest misconceptions in tennis is that thinking that the pros hit the ball with the middle of the racket. I've been selling this racket for almost 8 years already in 21 countries. And people have called me with all the success they get, especially because it creates focus from the beginning and creates feel from the beginning. The most important part in tennis. But the answer to your question is very simple. You want to do what the pros do, and you want to use the racket the way it's designed. Every part of the racket, will give you a different result. When you hit on the center, from the center to the top, the ball has a tendency to go straight, even though you can finish high. If you hit the top, definitely the ball goes down. If you watch the pros, the way they hit, especially now that you can see a lot of things in super slow motion, you'll see how the ball engages on the bottom of the racket. And from there, they keep closing the racket. Something is called hitting with the edge of the racket. So from the beginning with the easy racket 1, 2, 3, I'm trying to create on a child or on an adult the muscle memory of the right contact point. Once again, anywhere in the racket will give you the same result. The bottom of the racket, when you hit with topspin, will send the ball up. The top of the racket, when you hit with a slice, with a motion that is more up-down, will give you a slice. So that is the reason why many people have copied my racket and they have put a net in the middle of the racket, which is a really a misconception, because the kids or the adults or the pros don't hit with the middle of the rackets. They hit from the middle down, and you'll see very clearly. You can Google now, Google any pictures of a professional tennis player hitting the ball, and you see how the ball is engaged right here on the bottom, or what I call the string, the 7th string. Even more, if you look at a match and you see where the pros break the string, they break it from the bottom to the center, like the 7th or 6th string.
Okay, can you explain how the different sections work on this racket?
Okay, so each section, like I said before, is called field 1, field 2, and the string is field 3, because it's the ultimate goal to start hitting with the strings. If you were a little kid, a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, most kids love to touch for a reason. They're looking for feel. So the Velcro is a perfect helper for that. So let's pretend that you're a little kid and I tell you, okay, hold the racket and touch the ball. Touch the ball. Good, so now you catch one ball. Hold the racket and touch the ball. Good. Hold the racket and touch the ball. So you start with simple exercises like that. Hold the racket and touch the ball. And the ball's attached to the Velcro. Then you will go to field 2, which is the net. So now I will bounce the ball on the floor, and you'll have to catch it. And it might take you 1, 2, 3, or 4 balls, but eventually your eye-hand coordination or hand-eye coordination will allow you to develop that something so important from the beginning, which is focus. You will follow and track the ball from the bounce on the net.
Got it.
After a few balls into a net, you'll pull the Velcro out and you start trying to touch the ball with the string. 5 minutes into that, you're ready to go. You can grab a racket any age, and your contact point will be part of your muscle memory. You will hit with the bottom part. For example, the catching has to be done with the net on the bottom, because we agree so far now that this is the contact point, the bottom of the racket, to start hitting with topspin. And that's what the first thing you want to try to teach to a child or to an adult, to be able to push it. And from there, when the contact point is solid as a muscle memory, you can start adding the follow-through. One of the biggest mistakes many instructors make, including myself when I was younger, is to rush to teach the follow-through. And the eyes never stay with the ball on the contact point. As you can see on TV today, the pros leave their eyes on the ball for a long time before they look at the trajectory of the ball.
Would you use the same method with an adult as you would a child?
Yes, of course. I will use the easy racket 1, 2, 3. I use the racket 1, 2, 3 today. It's been used for adults in many countries in the world. Actually adults, kids see the easy racket 1, 2, 3 like a game. They catch the ball, they touch the ball, they pick up the balls with the net. They have a lot of fun, and they always focus on the ball and the field, because they're always having it without trying to swing at the ball hard. They're trying to feel the ball in the racket. In adult, many times they they want to see the improvement very fast, and they don't look at the ball. Many adults today, including good players, they take their eyes away from the ball. So sometimes I have to go back and introduce the easy racket 1, 2, 3, even with good players, for volleys, for serving, because it can be used with every stroke.
Okay, you just said that you can teach every stroke with this racket. Can you give me an example?
Yes, absolutely. The racket is designed to help you with every stroke. I give you a very good example, serving. Not many people know exactly what part of the racket they're using when they serve. And if you look at pictures, or if you look at people, the professionals playing, especially like I said before, now that everything is on the internet, you can see in YouTube everything in slow motion. The professionals, they hit the serve with this part of the racket. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So they go as a hammer and they move the hand, and many people have different ways to explain that with words. But not many people can give you an exercise to do it. I can tell you, oh, move your hand like this, pronate your hand, pronation, many ways that I can use a language. But the most important thing, if you have a tool that can teach you, one of the exercises I do with all the kids, because the better your contact point is, the better your result will be. And on the serve, this is the side of the racket that you need to contact the ball with. And that's a perfect exercise, just to toss the ball and catch it with the side of the racket. Something that we're going to demonstrate later on different videos with you. And you'll see how easy it is.
Finally on the court.
Yes, we
Can
are.
you show me how we can test this out?
Yes, we're going to do a few exercises that are very simple, that you can start with any kid. But the first thing I wanted to tell you, Sharon, is that you don't need to be on a tennis court to learn how to play tennis, or to learn what the racket actually is trying to teach you. The racket is trying to make you, number one, focus, and number two, learn something very simple called hand-eye coordination. Okay? You can do it in your living room. I have people coming to my house to take lessons. I have started on my living room and then took him to a bigger place. Sometimes for a 4-year-old, this tennis court is overwhelming because it's too big, so he can get distracted. So it defeats the purpose of learning or teaching hand-eye coordination.
More relaxed for them to learn maybe in a smaller environment.
Absolutely, and one of the reasons why I created the racket is for the parents to take it home and play with the kids at home. Even I have sold rackets and encouraged parents to leave the racket with a few balls on the floor, so the kid himself or herself will bounce balls or will put balls in the net or in the velvet. And that's what the things we're going to talk about now.
Excellent. So can we try?
Yes. So Sharon, now we're going to do this. We're going to work a little bit with field one. Field one is the Velcro of the racket.
Okay.
In this part is green, or it can be pink for girls. Most kids love to touch. So one of the things I encourage the instructors to do is, for example, allow the kid to touch the ball, and the ball stays in the racket. So like you can see now, the kid can pull it out. I'm going to do it again. Touch, touch. Now you take it out. That itself is already hand-eye coordination. Okay, the relationship between the two hands, the racket, and the contact point is very, very important. Another tool that I use for the touching is this ball attached to a string. So touch the ball. Very good. I let it go. Now you grab it from the string and you pull it out. Very good. Very hard Velcro. And you can put it in any heights. You can put it very low, and you see what you're doing with your eyes. You're looking at it, and now touch. Okay, now I pull it out again, and we do it lower. That the camera isn't going to see it, but there we go. Now I pull it out again. So this is field 1. It doesn't take too long. You can do it with a 4-year-old. We can do it with an adult that doesn't have a good contact point. The most important thing is to make sure the eyes are following the contact point. I stay there for a second. Okay, it's not so important in the beginning to look so much where the ball goes. They should have plenty of time to stay on the contact point with your eyes and then look at the trajectory of the ball.
Great, because again, you said something about that one section, not in the center.
Yes.
One part of the racket.
Absolutely. If we start teaching people to touch the ball in the center, it gets very confusing and too open, and the contact point that you're using to play tennis is the bottom of the racket for topspin. This is how you're using the physics of the racket. You know, how the racket can actually, the force and the mass that you have on the racket can bring the ball out. If you use the top or the center, the ball will always come down. Doesn't matter how great your follow through is. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions I see in tennis pros. They continue telling people to follow the ball, to follow through, but they don't make sure that the contact point is correct. So now we're going to use with Sharon level 2 or field 2. Field 2 is the net that actually starts making the player feel the weight of the ball into the hand. Okay, again, everybody talks about feel, and all of a sudden they tell you hit, which is the opposite of feeling the ball. So the racket, the easy racket 1, 2, 3 is perfect for feel. You can start by bouncing the ball. Very good. Very good. Very good. But if it happens that the child doesn't catch it, that's no problem. It's still developing hand-eye coordination. If you look at my first video with Isabella, my daughter, who is 9 years old now, in the beginning she doesn't catch it, and I still encourage her to keep watching the bounce and catching the ball. Actually, I didn't say anything about watching. I said catching. So catch. I remember with my daughter, I used to say catch the fish, okay, and see how many fish you can have in the net. So catch, very good, catch, and you can see how Sharon's eyes are on the net, developing perfect tracking from the ball from the floor to the net. And that's the idea of field 2. Okay? After you and your student experience this, you can move farther away from your student and toss the ball farther. And again, it's about the eye-hand coordination. You're not looking to teach a form here. You're looking to develop a steady eye-hand coordination. Very good. Excellent. After you have 5 balls or 10, you can remove them and start again. Most of the children, 4, 5, 6, and 7, they're going to find the racket a little heavier for themselves. So that is made for a reason. I want the child to actually hold the racket with both hands. So Sharon, I'm going to ask you something now. Pretend you're a child. I want you to try to catch it with both hands. Good. The reason for this exercise and the reason of why I made the racket a little heavier is for the child to have both hands on the racket in the beginning. A lot of the good players, even today, they practice hitting with both hands to develop a perfect hand-eye coordination. Why? Because the hands always move together. You can see players go like this, kind of pointing the ball, overheads and serves, always baseball, how they catch the ball, always the hands in the brain, the nerves are together. So it's easier when one hand points at the objects you're going to catch. So when the child holds the racket with both hands, it's developing already that motion that Roger Federer, for example, have of moving the racket to the side with both hands. He's finding the ball with both hands, like you're going to catch it. How did that feel? Now that we already developed a very decent hand-eye coordination with Sharon in less than 3 minutes, because we make her focus on one thing, very simple, catching the ball. I'm going to ask her to touch the ball. We have the net in front of us, but I'm not going to ask her to hit the ball over the net or anything. Most of the time, people hit it already over the net. They have a little force and they do it. I'm going to ask her to just keep touching the ball and see how that works. Sharon, face me and touch the ball. Good. So as you can see, she's still touching the ball on the bottom. And now push it over the net. Just touch it and give it a push over the net. Very good. Come a little closer and face me. Always face me. Because that's where the ball is coming from. Very good. Again. Face, very good. Touch, good. Touch the ball, good. Touch the ball. You can use any kind of balls. You can use the spongy balls that many people use for children. You can use these balls. Very good. Now you see with a little push, because she has feel and eye-hand coordination, the ball is going over the net. So we're going to introduce, and maybe this is a little fast, the follow-through. And we're going to make it with kids very easy. We have stickers that says MTC 10 for them to get 10 balls over there. So Sharon, I want you to do this now. I want you to touch and then touch your shoulder with your hand. Bring your there. And this little thing is going to point the court. Okay, so touch and touch. We call this the touch and touch technique. Okay, or the feel and touch technique. Okay, let's see how that works. Now, so she gets a different feel. Very good. And you can see her eyes watching the ball, and this is the first time, actually the second time that Sharon is doing this. Okay? Okay, Sharon, you just made your first step to play tennis. That a 4-year-old, 3-year-old, 7-year-old, a 72-year-old can make those steps. How do you feel?
Very easy, very easy. How did this work for me?
Okay, the racket works for everybody, not just for you. For one reason, allows you to learn hand-eye coordination on a racket with the ball, teaches you by feel, okay? So you get very close to a ball and you push it over the net, and allows you to learn the most important thing about tennis, which is staying focused on the ball. Being the ball the main thing. We are not talking about your feet, we are not talking about even the follow through in the beginning. We're talking about the contact point and your eyes tracking the ball from the bounce to the net or to the string, like you use a regular racket.
Excellent. It was very easy.
How did it feel when you hit the ball? Did it feel clean?
It felt very natural, very easy. I was focusing on where you told me, where this racket taught me on which part to hit, and I made it over every time.
Exactly. That's one of the advantages of using this racket, that because you're using the physics of the racket, using the right part of the racket, it's very low chance to hit the ball into the net. So from the beginning, a child or an adult clears the net And the net is the first obstacle you see when you play tennis. Someone that hits into the net all the time doesn't feel like playing tennis, because why? One of the common denominators I see while I go around the world teaching tennis is that many pros try to change people's technique when they hit the ball into the net. Most of the time, the problem, or I will say the solution to hitting over the net, it was the contact point. So those people, children, they have to go back to the first page of the book and go back to the contact point. If they hit on top and they have a very nice follow through, high, the ball still will shoot down.
Excellent.
Great. I hope now you can stay with the game and play more and more tennis, Ryan.
I'm excited now.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.